gentlemen, welcome back to Mondays Down South. As you can see, our setup is a little bit different today. Ev and Zebo, we're a little pre-Thanksgiving Day special. We're recording in my basement. Cheers, gentlemen. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy Thanksgiving to all the listeners. Thank you all very much. We're very thankful for all of you, subscribing and listening, and please continue to subscribe. With that being said, let's kick off our Turkey Day special. Gentlemen, we got any hot takes? Do we want to start off with Ev, E, McCoy? We want to start off.
I've got a few here, and I think the biggest thing, it's kind of to call us out. I was like, we need to stop making best bets and locks during our pick segment. I think, overall we have a decent.
I know where this is going. I know where this is directed.
Overall, we have a decent success rate. Like, our numbers are pretty good, but our best bets and locks are always wrong. Last week, mine was wrong with Miami covering. Zach, you are consistently wrong on the locks.
Detroit was my pick last week.
Yeah, so
they put up a goose egg, 0 points.
So we're gonna keep giving you quality picks, but I think we just need to stop calling them locks or best bets.
I think what I'm hearing is that I need to be more assertive with my picks too, because I feel like a lot of times I'm just like, you guys are like, oh yeah, like, you want to do this? I'm like, sure, but in reality, like, I should be a little more assertive.
That's the plan.
I am the owner of the highest percentage picked, correct?
Oh, here we go.
I'm just kidding.
So far, what we've learned so far is that Evan can actually participate. I can be off the podcast for a week and actually perform statistically better than you did. So,
we'll see if that lasts.
Does not go well for us. Zebo, you got any hot takes?
Yeah, actually, Si, I wanted to start one of my hot takes off because the University of South Carolina and Virginia Tech, from a college football standpoint, are dealing with a very similar issue right now. So if you guys remember, just about 5-6 years ago, there were 2 huge coach signings at South Carolina with Steve Spurrier rolling off, and then obviously Frank Beamer retiring as well. And so Justin Fuente went to Virginia Tech, Will Muschamp went to the University of South Carolina. Now you're dealing with a very similar scenario where neither of the coaches really panned out, respectively. They've had their successful years, but ultimately both organizations want to go into a different direction. So what you're seeing with South Carolina is you're seeing them forward with, or very communicative with Will Muschamp and saying, hey, look, you're 2-5 right now. We're going to move in a different direction now during the season. Now, Will Muschamp's buyout is over $12 million, which is very similar to Justin Fuente's. Now, Justin Fuente will most likely get relieved of his duties by the end of this season. However, Virginia Tech has decided to wait until the season concludes. My question to you guys is, which strategy do you think is better? I see pros and cons of each. So, for example, with South Carolina, they now have the ability to go out and actively recruit coaches that are currently coaching, but maybe not head coaches right now. So I've heard, a couple of rumors about Shane Beamer interviewing there, Hugh Freeze, and then also, but at the same point in time, when you relieve a guy like Will Muschamp, who is infamously known for being a phenomenal recruiter, you lose recruits. South Carolina has just lost 3 highly ranked 3-star recruits, which is not super detrimental, but they also have a 5-star. The name is escaping, Gunnar Stockton, I believe, who is committed to the South Carolina on a soft commit, who's a part of the 2022 class. So my question to you guys is it better to let the coach know midway through the season that you're going to relieve him of his duties because it may jeopardize recruiting? Or do you think it's better to say, hey, look, we're not going to start our recruiting process now from a coaching standpoint because we don't want to lose recruits, and we're going to relieve the head coach at the end of the season?
I think it's 1,000% better to do it within the season when you're planning on moving on, because there's 2 reasons. You might lose recruits, yes, that is true, but being transparent with your players and your organization and forthright with it is important, because these are kids' livelihoods. Like, you can't hold on to Muschamp and try to lock these kids in and then get rid of him once he's locked in, because that's not fair to them, because they signed under him. So yeah, we might lose recruits because we lost Muschamp. But on the flip side of that, the positive to that is whoever we hire can immediately start working on either retaining the recruits we've already gotten or trying to get more going forward. So one class might be worse than the previous one, but your goal is to get a new head coach that's going to be able to recruit, and a new coaching staff that is going to be able to recruit the style of players that they want. We might be losing recruits, they might be great athletes, but at the end of the day, each coach is going to have his own set of people that he's going to want to help his team develop in the way that he wants to develop. And if we're going offensive minded, then these recruits might be different anyway, right? And I think it's funny that you said Frank Beamer because Shane Beamer has been a really hot name in our recruiting search. As a matter of fact, he might be one of the top priorities as an Oklahoma assistant coach. He actually used to coach under Steve Spurrier back in the day and has been under a lot of pretty successful programs as a coordinator. And obviously, Frank, we know how incredible he was as a head coach, and he's an amazing recruiter and stuff. So apparently our players, our ex-players are really in on the Shane Beamer bandwagon, and I'm starting to jump on because everybody wants him, and like he's just like he's got clearly a lot of reasons to be excited about him. So that's one good one. But yeah, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, no, I think it's better to do it, mid-season if that's when right? It's kind of the when you know, and when you should do it. Because I mean, I'm coming at it from a different angle, but like you're gonna lose the recruits either way. You're gonna lose them in the middle of the season, or if you announce it at the end of the season, they're gonna leave if they're doing it because of the coach, right? So. In mid-season, it gives you the opportunity to speak with, coaches that aren't currently active, if there are any of those, and you can kind of get ahead of other teams with that. And evaluate a potential interim coach. Like if whoever you put in as the interim coach, you can evaluate if he's a future piece of whether as a head coach or still on your staff in the future. I think it just gives you a lot more options, and it's not like you have to do anything mid-season. Like if it's someone like Hugh Freeze, you're not going to be able to make an agreement until the season's over anyway. True. He's already coaching. True. Yeah. But if you know he's not your guy anymore, let him go, and then start the process as soon as possible and start speaking with other options.
And you got to be fair to that coach too. Like we got to give him a chance to get ready for next season to get hired somewhere else. So what's your take? Do you like the way Virginia Tech's doing it?
I'm a little sketched out by it because I see the success with. So Fuente is recruited decently from an offensive standpoint, but he's had plenty of years to be able to develop that offensive talent and actually see the production on the field. You're starting to see it a little bit this season. You've seen it a couple of times. But ideally, our best state was when we had Bud Foster, our defensive coordinator. We were able to maintain him and give him complete autonomy from a defensive standpoint. And that allowed Justin Fuente, as a head coach for a big Power 5 school, to just focus on one side of the ball. And he had that ability. Now he no longer has that ability because he's on two different fronts with the new defensive coordinator at Virginia Tech. So I think the task has just gotten more difficult for him. So unfortunately, I do think this is last year. I obviously wish him well, and obviously if he were to stick around, I'd be completely supportive. But I do think Virginia Tech needs the move in South Carolina's direction. Yeah. It just depends on when, right? So
I think you should do it sooner rather than later. And to be frank, like your most recent recruiting classes have not been great. You guys have been coming in ranked, but your performances within your conference, outside of your conference, and even against teams that have been noted to be in worse situations have not been great. It's been similar to South Carolina. We've been very similar programs, like we said. So I think it should just happen now, personally. I would want to give Fuente a chance to go back to being a coordinator somewhere else or coach somewhere else. That's the other reason. Be fair to the people, especially because both of them are great players, coaches. So you don't want to your players love them, your school loves them. Let them go be happy somewhere else.
And we bring up Shane Beamer too. Let's just say Virginia Tech followed suit with the same strategy that South Carolina had taken. Now Shane Beamer understands that there's two coaches or two potential schools that want to shop him, and with Shane Beamer having obviously the family heritage and growing up right outside of Blacksburg, we would have that ability to hopefully attract him. Whereas the longer that we prolong this, obviously he's going to get swept by another organization working with Nick Saban and working with Kirby Smart in the SEC.
Yeah, you get your first pick of a lot if you do it early too. That's another great point, right? We could lock in the guy that we want, and Virginia Tech doesn't get access to them if we already lock them in.
Exactly.
So that's one way to look at it. As far as my hot take goes, I'm just going to jump right into our football segment because my hot take can just tie right into it. It doesn't even have to be a hot take. I just want to talk about my Colts game. I want to start with that game. And, if it was up to me, we would end with that game because Ev, I appreciate you picking with me last week. Zebo over here came out saying some strong words about, they even got a chance. Rodgers is going to own them, so on and so forth. And my Colts went out there and took care of business and beat the Green Bay Packers. And I hope people start actually talking about the Colts as a legitimate Super Bowl contending team as opposed to just some team that nobody knows what to think of or people aren't giving credit for. So let's just talk about that game real quick. What were your guys' takeaways? What did you think of it? What do you think of both teams? Let's talk about the Packers and the Colts. What do you think it meant for them to either win or lose that game and the way it went down in the end?
Yeah, what you got, man?
Yeah, I thought it was a great game. I thought the Colts would win more so. I I'm kind of out on a lot of the NFC teams, and I think, I said earlier in the season I thought the Colts were going to start to establish themselves as a true Super Bowl contender, and it kind of was up and down there for a while. But now you're starting to see it. I mean, obviously, great defense. The running game has 3 quality backs.
Yeah.
Michael Pittman stepping up, who we love. We talked about last week. He's stepping up. Hilton's back. And I think that's a huge win. I think it solidifies themselves as the 3rd best team in the AFC and probably the 3rd best team in the NFL overall. Because again, I'm kind of out on a lot of those NFC teams. So I think it's going to be hard. I mean, huge game coming up again this week.
I know.
The Titans.
This is going to be a tough one, though.
The Titans look good as well. But I mean, again, I have Colts at 3rd best team in the NFL. Impressive win. Just great game overall. Classic.
Yeah, it goes to show you that the AFC is really conquering the NFC this year. I would be curious to see how the Colts would fare with a lot of the NFC West teams, with Arizona, Seattle, and LA, because those are some tough teams, and I would argue right on par with that Green Bay Packers level. But ultimately, I will admit, I am honestly continually shocked by the Colts in a good way, simply because you're starting to see the leadership of Phillip Rivers come out more and more each game, and I think it correlates with his efficiency. I think the team is able to see Phillip Rivers just start to make these 3rd down conversions a lot more consecutively. They're driving down the field. Rodrigo Blankenship is a complete stud from the kicker position. And it really is amazing. Shout out Patrick Barnett for sending this in our fantasy football group. But he sent this funny picture of Rodrigo Blankenship and DK Metcalf side-by-side comparison. And it was thankful. For Thanksgiving, I'm thankful that both of these 2 guys can play in the same league. So I thought that was a pretty awesome take there by our boy Pat. But I think ultimately the Colts are just getting better every game they play, which is exactly what you want to see at this point in time. I'm almost more cued in on that over how they've fared the entire season.
Yeah, so one thing I really want to say, and it was really bothering me because after the game I was watching all kinds of videos and people talking about the game, and every single segment I saw, the focus was on the Packers, right? Everybody sat down and they were like, oh yeah, what does this mean for the Packers? Oh, they made a couple unforced errors that could have won the game, or maybe they're not as good as we think we are. But literally nobody talked about the Colts. Everybody just kept saying, oh yeah, good win. The Colts pulled it out, at home, so on and so forth. And they kept talking about the errors the Packers made, as if the Colts didn't make errors in that game. It's not like we did. We played a perfect game. We turned the ball over. We had holding calls, but at the end of the day, we figured it out and we won the game. But we're not getting credit for that. And that's what's getting me frustrated, because I'm look, we went out there and we beat a team that people were more commonly picking and saying oh, there's no way they're going to be able to beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. And we went out there and we proved that we could. And I just feel that part is what's been frustrating for me, because it's, at the beginning of the season, I get the excuses of, oh, you're playing teams that aren't as good. And you're right, we didn't play the greatest schedule. But we just had back-to-back wins against Tennessee, who was 7-3. And we had back-to-back wins against the Packers, who are now 8-3 or 7-3. And we are sitting at the top of the division ahead of Tennessee, albeit with the same record. And we showed up in every facet of the game this weekend. We were down 14 points at halftime, and they scored 3 points in the entire second half. I just want a little bit of credit for my Colts. With that being said, though, I'm not, I feel a lot of people are oh yeah, the Packers, because they can't play defense, they're not going to, make as much of an effort. I don't know, I'm kind of out on that take. I think it was a really good game. I think it could have gone both ways. I think the Packers could have pulled it out, and I think they'll fix some of those mistakes going forward. I think they need to run the ball a little more. So I think the Packers will be fine going forward. I still think they're one of the best teams in the NFC. A lot of people are saying they're out on them. I think what you've been saying, Ad, is so true. There really aren't that many well-rounded teams in the NFC. So all the West teams that you talked about have flaws. So I'm not out on the Packers being one of the top teams. One last thing I will say for the Colts. This weekend is huge for us, obviously, because we get Tennessee again with the battle for the division.
Right.
But today we had 9 people that did not practice that are starters for us. So, and DeForest Buckner is on the COVID list. So we have to have fingers crossed that we can get at least half of those guys back for this weekend, or it's going to be tough sledding, because we're talking several of our offensive linemen, 2 of our best defensive players, and then Buckner's already out. So we really got to hope for the best, because that's going to make it really difficult this weekend.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is I don't think the Colts are ever going to get the credit they deserve, because it's not sexy, right?
Yeah, that's true.
There's no
That's
part
true.
about the team that's
So
sexy.
true.
It's defense first, it's running game first. And can you really think of a novice football fan? How many people are they going to know on the Colts?
That's very true.
Phillip Rivers, that's it.
And the funny thing is, the one that they do know is the one that gets scrutinized, right?
Yeah.
And
That's not what it means.
that's been the irony the whole time, because my whole point has been he is like obviously the quarterback, but he's not nearly as important as people are making it out to be in the sense of like he needs to do a more minimal job than he has previously in his career for us to win because we're built on defense, run game, offensive line.
So, Sai, are you admitting, because of everything with COVID right now with the Indianapolis Colts, are you admitting that this next game between Tennessee and Indianapolis, who are the two conglomerates in the AFC South, whoever wins that matchup, that does not dictate who will win that division? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I don't know if it'll definitely dictate the division. It'll be a big. I'll put it this way: we've already beaten them head to head, right? Last week. So if we win this, it's going to make it really hard for Tennessee because even if they have a tied record, we're gonna have won 2 of the games against them. So within the division, that makes it really difficult for them. But if they win, they'll obviously be up a game, and so we're going to have to in the last couple of weeks get them by a game or tie them and win our division. But we still have 2 left against Houston and 1 left against Jacksonville. So we have a lot of division games left, so those will dictate it. So I don't think it's going to 100% solidify the division winner, but I do think it's another like statement game, right? Because it kind of sets the tone going forward. And you always want to win division games if you can win division games. Like that's especially against your biggest rivals. So I don't know if it's going to like solidify anything. I think both teams are well on their way to either winning division or being the higher wildcard seed. Like they both have a good shot at that because they both are what I guess 8-3 now. Is it 11? 7-3. I keep wanting to say 8-3, but they're both 7-3 now.
One will go 8-3.
Was it?
One will go 8-3.
Yeah, true. One
Actually, no, I'm feeling a 7-3-1 record for both of them.
We will see.
Bold pick size. Zach, is that your line?
Is that your line?
Is that what we're betting on? All right. What other game you guys want to get to? I feel like we're talking about my Colts enough.
Well, what about we stay in the division, right? I mean, Tennessee-Baltimore, huge game, goes to overtime. Tennessee goes, it was on the road at Baltimore.
Yeah.
Baltimore was favored by almost a touchdown.
Yes. Yep.
And Tennessee goes on and gets it done. I mean, what do you guys think about each of those teams? I mean,
you want to go first? Go ahead.
Baltimore is definitely looking still like a playoff team, I would say, despite the fact that they are 3rd in the AFC. And maybe that's my hot take, to be honest. I still think Baltimore comfortably makes the playoffs. Now, obviously, they have a big game against Pittsburgh where they could potentially go 6-5. So, I mean, we'll see here. I'm still going to stick on that. But Tennessee, they bounced back in the way I thought. But I need more from Tannehill. He did, obviously they did come away with that victory, and a lot of it did result from Tannehill playing better in the second half. But that offense and that team is legitimately deadly when Tannehill is accurate in setting up the play action off of a Derrick Henry run. Like, Derrick Henry's going to get his 20 carries. He's definitely going to get his 100 yards. But the key is, can Tannehill respond in a very efficient and just an efficient manner and hit his receivers in Corey Davis and A.J. Brown. So that's kind of like my first hot take. Like, I don't know. I think Tennessee's going to be totally fine, but I just need more from Tannehill.
Yeah, so I'll put it this way. I don't know that the Ravens are in any means comfortably in the playoff picture because I believe right now they're in 8th in the AFC with their record. Because I think the Browns
are ahead.
The Browns are ahead. The Bills are ahead. The Colts, the Titans.
So they're tied with Oakland for 7 and 8. Vegas, I should say, and Miami.
Yep.
But I would say Vegas is a much better team.
Well, and the other thing is, the Ravens play the Steelers on Sunday. It was supposed to be Thursday. Game got postponed, as I'm sure you guys heard. They play them on Sunday. So by no means will that be an easy win. I basically think if the Ravens want to make the playoffs and feel a little more comfortable, they have to win this weekend. Like, this feels like a must-win. Like, go out and make a statement beat the Steelers and regain a little bit of confidence in yourself. Because even though the rest of their schedule isn't super hard, nothing they're doing is like making you super confident they'll continue to win. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of. I mean, they beat us a couple weeks ago. More power to them. But on the flip side, then they go back and they lose 2 in a row after that. Like, it's just kind of like the consistency hasn't been there, which makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah, I mean, first off on Tennessee, I agree with Zach. Like, I think they're trending in the right direction after kind of a rough middle of the season, but they still have a lot they need to prove, and that's Tannehill. The defense still looks awful. So,
and Derrick Henry, admittedly, and it's not as much on him as them running into really tough defenses. And Tannehill hasn't been throwing so well that like defenses are respecting it as much. So Derrick Henry's been bottled up a little bit more. Like against Chicago, I think. No, but then I think against the Colts, he didn't have more than 60 or 70 yards. Then Ravens, now he gets the Colts again. So it's like that's why it behooves Tannehill even more to make those throws and make those plays.
But on Baltimore, my hot take was gonna. I guess it's not really a hot take, but I was like, I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs at this point. I mean, I don't think they're good enough to make the playoffs. And again, I guess that's not really a hot take because I think, and we'll lean into the Vegas game, but I think Vegas is definitely a playoff team.
Honestly, I'm kind of with you there.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you there.
And I think Tennessee and Colts for me are both making the playoffs in whichever order. And then you're talking about, I think Baltimore needs to catch Cleveland. And I'm counting the Steelers game as a loss already because I think Baltimore's trash. And then next week on Monday Night Football at Cleveland, that's the game.
Baltimore's
That's the game they need.
Well, they have to win.
If they
lose,
that's the one they have to win. If they lose that, I think it's done.
I mean, if you lose those back to back, then your last 2 weeks you have to. It's one of those where you're sitting there like watching the other teams play because what they do decides whether you make it or not.
Yeah.
And their schedule gets easy at the end of the season. I will say, I looked ahead.
But what's easy in the NFL?
Yeah.
Like if you're not playing well, it doesn't matter who you play. You got a chance of losing that game on any given week. Like even if it's I think they have like the Giants on the schedule. Like who knows if that's going to be
Giants
easy?
are good.
They're playing better. That's what I don't know if they're very good, but they're playing better. That's a bold statement.
Yeah. And I guess my thing on this is why I'm not worried from a Baltimore standpoint. The first game against Cleveland, it was the first game of the season. The Ravens came out, won like 38-6, and that was with OBJ. The Baltimore Ravens had the third best defense outside of, in my opinion, the Chicago Bears and the Indianapolis Colts. They still have their corners in. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the Baltimore Ravens defense is still going to be there.
I was going to say Pittsburgh.
Oh, Pittsburgh. All right. Well, or top five defense, right? So they still are right there in that realm. And I don't trust Cleveland's defense enough. And Cleveland has had their cupcake schedule the first half of the season. Now they actually have to start playing some more challenging games. It'll be interesting to see if Baker Mayfield, who has not played well this season statistically, can keep this 7-3 magical fairy tale record up. Because I don't think that's going to be the case. I think if Miami holds up, I definitely know Vegas will. Because they took Kansas City toe-to-toe. And I'm sure we'll talk about that game in a second.
Yep.
As long as Baltimore can outstand Cleveland, which I have a total confidence in, I think they'll be okay. But you're right. To your point, Ed, they need to start winning games, and they need to start winning right now.
I think that's a perfect segue to the Raiders because I think we should do one AFC and then jump over to the NFC because we're not really giving the NFC any love right now.
They don't deserve any love.
There's one team that does
deserve
it after this week.
Exactly. I think we all know who that is. But, I think Zach's not going to be too happy about which team that is given his pick last week. But we'll jump into that in a second. The Raiders are a real deal team. I think I said it week 2. I think I said I really believe that this team is going to pull it out because I was really liking the way that offense was flowing and their defense has just been consistently getting better. Mm-hmm. And they just play your hard-nosed old school football, like the classic John Gruden, run teams into the ground and then beat them by play action, open passing. And they got a great tight end in Waller. They're making it work with their receivers, even though nobody's it's Nelson Aguilar, who was a running joke in the NFL for his inability to catch footballs, has been consistently good for them. They're making it work with these younger, not so talented receivers by pounding the ball with Josh Jacobs and even Devontae Booker. They're using both of them really well. And then defensively, they've been in several matchups with the Chiefs. They've made the Chiefs' offense have to work really hard on one side, but then on the flip side of that, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, you're not going to beat them twice in the same season. And that Mahomes game-winning touchdown drive with Travis Kelce, you knew as soon as he got that ball, that game was over and the Chiefs were going to win. And you can't fault the Raiders at all because they made a statement one the first time and they kept it close against the Chiefs. I'm actually assuming that the Chiefs, in their mind, the Raiders are probably the team they want to see the least in the playoffs if it works out the way it does. And there's a good chance that could be a second-round matchup, even if the Chiefs end up passing the Steelers for the first bye or not. We'll have to see about that. But what did you guys think? You guys all in on the Raiders? I feel like we kind of.
I am on the Raiders bandwagon. I love the simplicity of the offense they run to Si's point. I think that was a really good point because they just seem to run they don't have the flashy players that you would expect with some of these other AFC teams. They honestly do remind me of the Colts. You utilize a variety of weapons. You have one superstar. In Indianapolis, it's Phillip Rivers, and in Vegas, it's obviously Josh Jacobs. But you also utilize a lot of different players. In fact, with Vegas, they're the staple of rapid adaptation. You thought Henry Ruggs was going to be that constant deep threat. That has actually turned into Nelson Aguilar, and there's no necessarily problem with that. But I guess, throughout the course of the season, your roster doesn't necessarily stay stagnant, and Henry Ruggs has not necessarily shined to, I think he was the first wide receiver taken, am I believe I'm correct in that, right? So obviously he hasn't.
In the first round, he was the first one. Yep.
Yeah, so he was the first wide receiver taken in the 2020 NFL draft. So, obviously you want to see a little bit more out of him, but Gruden's got it covered. That spider wide banana.
Spider 2 wide banana.
Exactly. That type of offense is working, man. And honestly, props to Derek Carr. He looks like a complete leader. He, on the field, audibled more than Mahomes did or any other quarterback that I had seen that Sunday. So obviously Gruden trusts Derek Carr, which was a big thing coming into this year and last year. And it seems like he's going to be there for the long-term future. So definitely high on the Raiders. But I just thought it was an all-around amazing game. In between the Chiefs and the Raiders, two phenomenal matchups this season between the two opponents.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add, Carr obviously deserves a ton of credit for how he's played this season.
Yes.
Secondly, like you said, the Raiders seem to even play up against the Chiefs. I don't know if that's a matchup thing because I don't really know what I would speak to as
division,
what the matchup is, or if it's
Yeah.
division, or if it's just, I don't know what it is. But I mean, they even play up against the Chiefs, so I would agree. I don't think the Chiefs want to see him again. And thirdly, I mean, again, just overall, I think that game just proved to me that the Raiders are legit because after that whole victory lap thing after the last game, all these COVID cases and guys not being able to practice this week, and you can hang it that close against a team that the Chiefs are what we expect them to be. Like, they're an elite team that I don't expect to lose another game.
Super Bowl champs that got better.
And to hang it so close again after the Chiefs, I'm sure they wanted to go blow them out and rub their faces in the dirt, but they couldn't do it. And they could barely even win the game, and it needed a last second touchdown to Kelsey to do it. So
the one last thing I want to say is I want to give credit. I want to take a second to give credit to John Gruden because I think a lot of us laughed a lot when we heard that he was getting a 10-year, it was $100 million contract or something. Clearly they paid a lot of money to come back, and a lot of people said, "Oh, why are you paying this absurd amount of money to bring this old school mentality coach back to coach a team? What are you doing? With the Chiefs right next to you and Reed and all these other teams around you." And admittedly, he has done a terrific job turning that organization around. We laughed at a lot of the trades they made, a lot of the decisions they made, and ultimately, they're a good-looking team with a bunch of young players and a bright future ahead of them. Even if they don't win this year, they got a foundation, and it doesn't seem like they're in a situation where they're tied up to anybody where they can't build upon it. And I think they're another perfect example of what you're saying earlier, Ed, where they're not a flashy team. Most casual football fans aren't going to be able to name more than one player on that team, and that's what I love about them. They're just going out and proving they can do it with what they got. So
yeah, well, think about from a receiver standpoint. Their two top receivers that they had brought in were Tyrell Williams and Antonio Brown, and obviously neither of them have been a part of the offense this season. And I don't mean to disrespect Henry Ruggs too much, but he really hasn't either in his own respect. So it is pretty interesting to see the Raiders keep on rolling. But I guess outside of that, is there another matchup you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, let's go coach to coach. We're talking about great coaches. Let's jump over to Mr. Sean Payton's son this weekend against Zach's Falcons. First of all, shout out to Michael Dolan, because even though he said, Taysom Hill was going to take 50% of Drew Brees' snap by the end of the season, I think Taysom Hill, and it's only been 1 week, but he's on his way to proving that he might be taking 100% of those snaps starting next year. Because we all were wondering, what is Sean Payton doing giving Taysom Hill, a gadget player, that amount of money? And he's showing that in an offense where you have a great running back, a great short yardage receiver, the pieces around you, and a solid defensive team, Taysom Hill potentially could be a starter in the NFL for several years to come with Sean Payton. I'm not saying you can plug him into any offense and succeed, but this weekend they went out there and they showed the Falcons, and we can talk a lot about the offense, and we should give Michael Thomas a ton of credit for bouncing back and Taysom Hill credit for being as efficient as he was to the passing game. But defensively, that team is figuring it out. The last 3 weeks, they're kind of playing back to that level that they played the beginning of last year, the middle of last year, and they did it without Marshawn Lattimore this weekend. So they're showing that they're back to it. Let me pose a question to you guys, because we can talk much about the matchup, but I think we're all kind of on the same page with it. Is there a team in the NFC better than New Orleans Saints?
With Taysom Hill at quarterback or Drew Brees at
Regardless.
quarterback?
Regardless.
I think the Rams could pose a threat to that.
Oh, coming from a guy that has been not on the
anti-Rams, but I would still take the Saints. But I think the Rams is your number 2 for me.
I think the Green Bay Packers are still the best team in the NFC.
That's fair.
I still think that because I'm sure Evan, and correct me if I'm wrong, you brought up the Rams because of their defense, right?
They're the only team that plays, well, other than the Saints. Saints play defense, but of the NFC West teams,
I think those are the
Right,
only
right.
two teams. I think those are the only two teams you can argue as complete in the sense of they have a good offense, a good defense, and good special teams. Right? They play the whole game. Like if you look at a lot of other teams in the NFC, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, they're exceptional at one part of the game, but either mediocre or below average at the rest of those. And the reason, and same with the Packers, their offense is incredible. They don't run the ball as well, but still, with how amazing Rodgers is, it doesn't matter. Their offense is going to put up points. But their defense has proven to be susceptible. And in games when their offense doesn't put up points, they're not winning because teams are driving the ball at will against their defense. Like they haven't been able to stop any facet of other teams' offenses. So that's why the Saints, I keep bringing them up. And it's just funny because like 4 or 5 weeks ago, if I said to you, oh, the Saints are still one of the best teams or the best team in the NFC, a lot of people were laughing. They're like, oh, Drew Brees is washed. Like they're not going to be able to score points. Their defense isn't that good. And sure enough, they're back showing you again for like the third or fourth straight year that they're an NFC powerhouse. So, but please continue. I want to know what you have to say.
So Rodgers and Devontae are doing otherworldly things, which is what we expected, but to not this high degree given Devontae's injury in 2019. So honestly, it's great to see them back inside. We'll give you another shout out for drafting Aaron Rodgers when nobody else believed
And
in the
Devontae
guy
Adams.
because of Matt LaFleur's very run-heavy offense. But anyways, that's besides the point. Ultimately, the Green Bay Packers are incredible offensively, and Aaron Rodgers does have that downhill throwing arm where Drew Brees comes back. Who knows if that happens in New Orleans? And also, second, you talk about the New Orleans Saints, they have their staple corner in Marshawn Lattimore. You talk about the LA Rams, they have their staple corner in Jalen Ramsey. Someone who is very underrated and not talked about is Jared Alexander.
That's true.
Jared Alexander is a shutdown corner this year, and he gets a ton of respect too, so I just wanted to allude to that.
That's a really good point. Although the only part I feel bad for him is he doesn't get as much support as those other two guys. The Smiths were really good last year when they signed them. They have not shown up as much this year in terms of Za'Darius and I always forget the other. But essentially the Smith brothers on the Packers defense were supposed to be those pass rushers. And you know what a part of it is? I think it's coaching on the defensive side. Like LaFleur has been an amazing offensive coach, but I think they need to do better defensive coaching because when I was watching the Colts game, I don't even they have skilled players, but I don't know what they were doing in some of those plays. Like guys were just running wide open across the middle of the field, and then they'd catch the ball and there wouldn't be a guy 20 yards.
Yeah.
And then Smith was dropping into coverage. We're talking about a guy that got paid $12 to $15 million to pass rush, and he's dropping into coverage. I'm like, what are you guys doing? It makes no sense. So I don't know. Maybe it's the coaching, but like I've said, the Rams are probably the other team that you got to really start giving credit to.
And the Rams, I think, have another level too. My concern with the Saints is it's I don't know if I see enough upside with that team overall to be a Super Bowl contender, especially with Brees as the quarterback. Taysom, if he is able to be accurate enough and close to Brees, which he can't be this early in his career, with the running upside, okay, maybe the offense is more explosive, but with the Rams, and I think they're ready to unleash Cam Akers. I think they really want to make him the lead back because their running game's been awful the last couple weeks, which hasn't stopped them from being able to move the ball great. But if you get Cam Akers going, you have 3 solid backs, but I think they're really trying to unleash Cam Akers, and if you can get him going, the running game going, obviously the play action, short pass, the handoffs to Woods and stuff like that, man, the defense.
That Woods Cups Reynolds combination is nasty. But
And
I will say though, they need to chill with their using 3 backs in my opinion. I think again, I've said this 100 times. If you have a good running back, I understand in the modern NFL it behooves you to potentially use multiple for different skill sets. But the good running backs will never get a rhythm if you aren't able to commit to them and continue to give them carries. And I think Cam Akers is a perfect example because he's a rookie and he's got all the talent in the world. And I know you're trying to win, but if you're not going to use him, then don't use him. But don't do this thing where you're one play Akers, next play Brown, next play Henderson. None of those guys are ever going to get a rhythm, and that's just kind of the way I see it with running games. But that's me personally.
I just don't think they know who's their guy this year.
Yeah.
Darrell Henderson's looked really good at times, not so much lately. Malcolm Brown, I think, is the third one. He's clearly just a supporting role guy, and I think they're starting to be all right, come on, Cam, we want it to be you.
Yeah.
We're starting to get you more involved, including in the red zone. We'll just have to see how it goes. But I mean, impressive. What's that?
No, I was gonna point at both of you about something as soon as you finished.
I was just gonna say, impressive win over the Bucks. Going on.
No, he's just trying to throw up a quick game.
Oh yeah, that's not what you're doing.
He's just trying to get his game box.
No, you did
I
not.
don't really see what he's just trying to get a quick
No,
game
I
box.
was doing a little point, but I guess the subconscious Gamecock side is always up. One thing I'm going to ask you guys is we're bringing the Rams up, and also we apologize in advance because this is the Thanksgiving special. We're in person. This is going to be a longer episode. Deal with it.
It's actually, I mean, we're making a good time.
No, we're gonna enjoy it. We're gonna enjoy
Got a
it.
lot of stuff to talk about.
So sit up for the end, man. All right.
There are bits on the other sheets.
No, okay. So let me ask you guys this because we're talking about the Rams. So let's talk about the team they beat, the Buccaneers. Here's a stat for you. In the last 19 pass attempts that Tom Brady has been, I believe it's the last 2 to 3 games that he's played, he's had 19 deep ball pass attempts, meaning passes over 20 yards, and has a quarterback rating of 0 because he has completed 0 of them. What does that tell you guys? Because think about it, the Buccaneers, with the exception of Brady, where is there a flaw on that team? Where? Their receivers, their tight ends, their running backs, their defense, like in every level. Maybe their offensive line could be marginally better, but even their offensive line, they shifted their center to a guard position and he essentially shut down Aaron Donald. So where else is the flaw on that team with the exception of Tom Brady?
I would say the coaching and the offensive system doesn't meet the talent or doesn't match up well with the players they have. Because
That's fair.
If you look at over the last few weeks, they've kind of gotten away from the run game a little bit. Like, I mean, Ronald Jones popped the big one against Carolina, but the running game hasn't been as good. So you need to get the running game back because Tom Brady is only good when he has a good running game. And granted, you do have downfield weapons, so I get your.
They're not being utilized correctly. And it might be partly because of that.
But you can't with Brady, to your point.
But that's what I'm trying to say.
And I agree, Brady. But like, if they get back to the a shorter passing game with a good running game, like they'll be fine. But I do agree that you're not gonna be able to throw downfield to those elite weapons with Brady.
You got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin, you got Antonio Brown, you got Gronk's and you got Scotty Miller. The question is, if you can't hit 20 to 30 yard passes down the field with all those guys, all the throws are going to be underneath, which is why we're seeing so many more interceptions from Brady this year than previous years. And I'm not trying to sit here and disrespect him. You guys know I'm not the biggest Brady fan ever, but I also know that he's one of the greatest to ever play the game. So I'm not trying to disrespect him. But I'm just saying, at what point do you realize, and I'm not saying there's ever a situation in which the Bucs can just be like, all right, we're done with you, Brady, we'll bring the backup in. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're not bringing Gabbard over Brady. But what I am saying is, could you, like, next season, do you go back to Brady, or do you start looking to build around somebody else? Because I believe that there's a lot of other quarterbacks that if you put them in that system would have more success right now. And again, no offense to Brady because he's still super clutch. He's still like when he's put in the opportunities with like the red zone and stuff, he always converts. Like he still does those like things that the greatest of the greats do. But it's feeling very similar to like that season when Manning post 55 touchdowns started regressing kind of season. And they did win the Super Bowl, but that was with an incredible defense. And Brady's going to have to do this in the playoffs. And the question is, do you think they're going to be able to beat teams in the playoffs without him being able to complete downfield passes? Like that's what I got. That's what I got a question.
That's a good point. I think it's a mixture of both because both of you bring great points to it, right? So size calling out the flaws in Brady's down the field passing game, which is very justifiable. But then also Evans bringing up the play calling and the there's too many mouths to feed, right?
Yep.
And it does kind of remind me. It's like what they say about opportunities. If you endless opportunities, you're just going to get inundated with all the different potential avenues you can pursue.
Definitely.
But if you have like 4 or 5 opportunities, you're able to kind of break down which one is the best for you. It's the same thing in Tampa Bay with the amount of talent they have. I almost think they brought too much talent in the Tampa Bay because there's too many mouths to feed. Like AB needs to get the ball. Chris Godwin, don't sleep on him. He's a possession receiver. Oh, Mike Evans needs to get the ball. And then you have like a plethora of running backs as well. I just think there's too much talent in Tampa Bay, and I think that's causing an issue, not only in the play calling, because you obviously want to set up go-to third down conversions, play for Antonio Brown, because he can get open. But when you have like 3 receivers that think they can get open at the same point in time, who's your primary option? Is it Mike Evans with Jalen blanketed over him? And by the way, shout out Jalen Ramsey for locking Mike Evans down Once again, another top
He
tier.
did have a really good game.
No.
And Jalen
Lock
had
it
like
down.
3 pass interferences.
Look at the stats.
I don't think this is right.
I'm pretty sure
I don't
this
think this
is
is right.
incorrect. We apologize in advance for it. Like,
We have cell phones.
Jalen locked right down.
Sure, quick.
Look this up real quick.
Pull this up.
Keep
But I,
exactly
think,
stop.
I just think there's too many mouths to feed in Tampa Bay, and I think that's causing a very big issue.
5 for 49 and score on 9 targets. That's not
Okay,
like
there
over,
should have been
but-
an offensive pass interference on Mike Evans.
I don't have the penalty data.
Wasn't there like 2 or 3 defensive PIs? Although
He had
I
a couple
will say,
PIs,
although
yeah.
I will say some of those, and I'm with Ramsey on those. Some of those were ridiculous. Like,
Some of them were ridiculous.
Like, come on, man! You gotta let cornerbacks have some like opportunity to guard these big, strong receivers. You can't
Right.
be calling like weak,
Yeah.
pass interference calls for the off. That's ridiculous. Like, give Ramsey a chance to guard him.
And the touchdown that Mike Evans got,
Yeah, that was
Sean McVay
ridiculous.
was sprinting down the sidelines because it was the one play that Jalen
Yeah.
was not on Mike Evans, and Mike Evans scored.
Of course,
So
and he-
I wouldn't even look at the stat line.
Yeah.
The thing I love that you said, I disagree that they have too much talent.
I do too.
Okay.
But they don't need to force, like, there's not an ego problem right now, which is amazing. Like, you don't hear anything about bad locker room tension with all those egos, but I do agree that the play calling does seem to, it seems like they try to force the ball. It's like, oh, we haven't gotten AB
Sure.
a touch in, the last quarter. Let's throw him. At one point, I think they threw him 4 screen passes in a row, or it was like 3 screen passes and end around. So it's like, you don't need to force it to them. Like, they've done a good job from an ego perspective, so let's run normal plays. And
Well, the
throw
other
it
thing is
back.
that kind of does go back to Brady, only because they have to do things that traditionally that Brady hasn't had to do. Because think about it, his biggest thing, the thing Brady always killed people on when he played on the Patriots, when he was in his prime, or even towards the end of his prime, and even after his prime, was the quick, hot passes, right? Like, snap the ball and immediately release it. And a lot of those were those little out routes or the come around to the side like thing. And he would hit people in stride every time, and the offense would keep moving and they'd get those first downs. Now he just can't throw those balls. Like, he tries to, think of the number of pick sixes we've seen or deflections on those. They're just, it doesn't have that zip. So they're trying to get really creative with utilization of other receivers. And he's beating them with his smartness. I mean, of course he's going to do that because he's one of the smartest to ever play the game. And he's beating them with his smartness, but he's not beating them with his ability to throw the football. Because we're talking about a guy that had could throw flamethrowers just a few years ago,
Yeah.
and we saw the regression last year. I'm seeing it more now. Statistically speaking, he's still having a good season in terms of touchdown passes and things like that. But I'm just saying, I don't want the stats to point a picture that isn't completely painting it. And the other thing I will say is Bruce Arians, I actually do think is a great coach. I just think this situation is not the most ideal for him to coach in, because if you put Sean Payton or Andy Reid with these weapons, they would know how to use those weapons. I don't care who the quarterback is; those guys would all be eaten, and those teams would be winning more of these matchups. But that's just not Arians' cup of tea. He likes to have a downfield passer where he can draw up those downfield plays, and Brady's just not that. Which is what I always said. I was always like, I'm a little bit confused by the Arians Brady fit with his love for throwing the ball down the field.
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, Brady's bigger than the ski. He's there because he put Tampa Bay on the map.
100%.
So we talk about all this, but it's we knew it wasn't a perfect fit. Arians knew it wasn't a perfect fit. Brady probably knew it wasn't a perfect fit.
Yeah.
But from a football perspective,
I'm sure he's happier on the
But,
Bucks
yeah,
than he was going to be on the Patriots
So,
this season.
I think that's the bottom line. It's maybe not a perfect schematic fit, and it never will be, but he put Tampa Bay on the map.
I do wonder what would have happened if he stayed with the Patriots this season. That team would probably still be getting beat up pretty good, the way they have been. Because a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, look at the Patriots without Brady." I don't think this is the Patriots without Brady. I think this is the Patriots without a defense that they used to have that was dominant last year, and the Patriots without that consistency of previous years where they had Gronk and all these other guys. I just legitimately think that they switch it around.
The sad thing is the Falcons would still have the same record because we haven't played Tampa Bay yet. But I figured we'd kick it over to the analytics and get started with this upcoming week here.
Big week of picks. So I'm going to drive this week, taking the torch from Zach because we're using his phone to record. But so last week, don't have the numbers in front of me, but I did it before. It's kind of hilarious. We all finished, and this was a brutal week, by the way. Lots of upsets. We said it before we were making our picks last week. Brutal picks, super hard picks. 7-7 across the board.
All
Yeah.
we all had wildly different selections.
Yeah, with a lot of different.
I'm gonna be honest. I was thinking in my mind when we were making those picks. I was like, if we go 50% this week, I'm gonna consider that a win.
It was
because
all
this is
brutal
the
week.
hardest round of picks I've ever had to sit there and make. Like I was literally sitting there saying like, this is insane. Like every matchup was so close. So
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Brutal week, and the bet, I mean, we struggled on the bets we agreed on too. Chiefs did not cover, Miami did not cover, Detroit did not cover. But Tennessee covered. Tennessee covered. So not good. Not good. But looking at this week, we will start it off with Houston going to Detroit Thanksgiving Day. First game at 12:30. Line is Houston favored by 3. Over under 51.5. Sai?
Over under 51.5.
Big time over under.
That is wild. Maybe that's something we got to consider. Man, I want to take Detroit, but if Galladay doesn't play, Stafford's still playing a little hurt. DeAndre Swift come back from injury, which will help. But I'm gonna go Houston just because it feels like they'll have a little momentum.
Yeah, I'm pulling a nice little switcheroo from what we discussed when we were playing basketball earlier. I'm going to go Houston here. They play in a dome, so it's not anything extraordinary. You're exactly right. I just want to bet.
We've talked a bit about this game.
I think Houston not only covers, I've got them in a money line situation. I don't think Stafford is fully back to health. And Ev, let's bet.
I don't know if it actually feels this way. I've got Houston covering. I'd probably take the under there. That 51.5 to take.
Definitely under.
That's a.
I think Houston will score, but I mean,
it's hard to take that under after they scored 0 points last week.
They look awful. Galladay should be out again. Like I said, Swift should be back. But huge game, believe it or not. Washington football team goes to Dallas. Winner gets the division lead for the time being. Subject to change when the weekend comes with the Eagles game on Monday as well as the Giants. The Giants, actually, ironically, whoever wins this game gets into first. If the Giants win Sunday, they take it back. And then if the Eagles win Monday, they take it back. Line is 3 favored to Dallas, which says the teams are even. Over-under is 46. What's that? Go ahead.
So with this game, I think Dallas covers the spread, which I believe is 3 here. And the reason I think they cover is because their offensive weapons started to show fruitions of greatness. We saw it with CeeDee Lamb. We saw it with Zeke Elliott, who I know you're a recent fantasy owner of Zeke. I am as well. That's going to hopefully benefit us in the future here. So I'm pulling for that. I think Dalton had his great first game last week. I think that continues on Thanksgiving. And I just don't think Washington's defense is good enough to stop all of those offensive players. So I'm going to go Dallas here, and I think they cover the spread.
Do you want to rebuttal?
I do. So this is an incredibly difficult pick. In terms of the defense, obviously the defensive line is fantastic. So I disagree with it there. And believe it or not, the Washington football team has the best pass defense in the NFL. Now, I suspect it's because we're usually losing and teams just run on us. I suspect that's why, but that's a fact. Anyway.
You're also playing NFC East teams a lot.
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons for that, but that is a true stat.
That's a surprising stat.
Fuller and Darby playing pretty well. Jimmy Moreland, go Dukes. The interesting thing about this game is on so many levels. So I was looking at the ESPN matchup predictor. I don't know if you guys have ever used that tool. So they say Washington football team, 55% chance of winning this game. Vegas says the Cowboys are favored by 3. That's the only game on the slate where those two things don't agree. Which is an interesting arbitrage opportunity. Also, in terms of the division, I did a quick analysis this week on how I think this division is going to go. Because I think this game here could decide the division. Because I don't think the Eagles win another game until week 17. If you look at their schedule,
have a pretty hard schedule.
Arizona, Green Bay, New Orleans, Seattle over the next 4 weeks. And then you get a divisional game. So I don't think they win until week 17, which means they're going to get last. I think the Giants are the best team in the division. But I think they have another difficult schedule. So I think these two teams, whoever wins, could win the division. Dallas has the easiest schedule at home. Dallas always wins on Thanksgiving at home, especially against the football team, with one exception of when RG3 lost his mind that 1 year.
They're all 3-win teams, right?
Yeah, 3 and 7.
Every team in the division is 3 wins.
And with the Eagles having
it's the race for 5 wins this year.
But the one team I genuinely don't think can win the division is Philly because of how bad
their schedule is absolutely
it's a nightmare.
ridiculous.
They'll be out by the time they get to the division games.
Yeah,
they're awful.
Ridiculous.
But so this one's incredibly hard because I think these teams are probably dead even. And the last time they played, which was with Andy Dalton, this game he got injured, the football team destroyed it. It was 25-3 in the district. So I think this is an incredibly hard pick. I'm almost hedging here against football team. I'm gonna pick Dallas and Dallas to cover because it's a small spread, but Tough one.
I think this might be the hardest game to pick even this weekend, because if you think of it like the way that it's carved out, they're both 3-win teams, but they're both competing for the division. They're good at different things. Like Dallas is really good at with their receivers, and when their offensive line is playing well, they're good at the run game. But on the flip side, the Redskins are way more defensive centric. They got Smith in there throwing 20 passes to McKissick a game. It's hard to really peg this one. But the reason I'm going to go Dallas in this one is I truly believe they're getting back to their roots of their offensive line is playing better, and they're committing to running the football a little bit more, and that's opening things up in the passing game. I think Dalton, after last week, has shook a little bit of those cobwebs off, and I think he'll play a little bit better. It's almost like the battle of game managers, and I just think Dalton is a little bit better of a game manager at this point in their career after the injuries Oxford sustained him coming back. It's up in the air. I mean, it's up in the air. But I just think the Cowboys are going to commit to running, and the CeeDee Lamb's been playing great. Obviously, you got Amari Cooper. Obviously, you got all those guys. So, and Schultz, that's the one guy. He's been a difference maker for a guy like Dalton who loves throwing to the tight end. I think Dallas has been leaning on him. So I'm gonna go Dallas in this one. This is gonna be a really tough one, though. A really tough one.
Yeah.
Tough game.
I think it's going to be a great game. I think Elliott does have a big game.
Dude, somebody's gonna win with 5 or 6 wins in your division.
I think
joking about that week 3, but I was like, there's no way somebody's gonna win 7 games.
I did go through I literally went through the rest of the schedule for each team in this division. I did give the Cowboys a 7-9 final, which includes them winning this game because their schedule is really easy.
Has that ever happened before?
7-9 has. I don't know if 6-10.
So what do they have to win 4 of the next 6?
That's 4-2. Yeah.
That's still
their schedule's easy. And I basically just gave the division games to whoever's home. Mm-hmm. So if they win this one, they have an easy schedule, so they can do it. Moving on, Vegas at your Falcons, Zach. I'll start it quick. I think Vegas is legit coming off a loss. Atlanta's going to steal a game or 2 here down the stretch, but I don't think it's here. I'm going to go Vegas.
What's the line of that?
Oh, sorry. -3 for Vegas on the road. Over under 54.
I'm going to go Vegas in this one, mainly because I don't know if Julio Jones is playing too, so that makes it even harder for the Falcons.
I'm a Falcons fan. -3 is disrespectful to the Raiders. Raiders win and Raiders cover that from a Falcons fan.
Is this the first time you've picked against Atlanta this year?
I think this also means we need to consider betting on Vegas, but let's keep going.
Tough on the road, though, going across the country. I mean, that's a long flight.
Yeah, they still play in the dome, though.
True. Chargers at Buffalo, -5.5 to Buffalo, 52.5. I couldn't read my handwriting, but 52.5 looks like the over-under.
Start us off, Zigo.
This is a really tough game because Buffalo is at this point what we normally thought was going to be a very comfortable division sweep with New England not playing well is actually a little bit more difficult with Miami 1 game behind. Buffalo hasn't played their best football as of late. The Chargers are playing phenomenal. They're putting up points left and right here. It's a tough game. What's the spread here?
5.5.
I think the Bills win because it's a much-needed win, but I think the Chargers cover that 5-point spread.
Yeah, I could see this being a field goal game. You said this is in LA or this
Buffalo.
Yeah, that's the main reason I got to pick Buffalo. If this was in Los Angeles, I would consider picking the Chargers, but I'm going to go Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo. I think Chargers keep it close just because the offense. And 52.5, that's an easy over for me. This is going to be a shootout.
52.5?
Yeah, that's it. So I love the over here. I don't love the spread. I'm going to take Buffalo outright.
Yeah.
Next game, Giants at Cincinnati. Brandon Allen is your starting quarterback, not Ryan Finley. Spread is -6 for the Giants. 42.5 is your over-under.
Giants by a touchdown.
I don't like the over-under bet, but I do like the Giants to comfortably win this, and I think they cover.
Yeah, Giants easy cover for me. Brandon Allen. I kind of like the over because I don't see how the Bengals score more than 20 points. Gio Bernard concussion, Mixon's out again.
Also Cincinnati's defense is straight trash, and that offensive line needs some serious work.
Tough,
Giants big.
So again, I actually love the betting slate this week because that's another good one I like a lot is Giants to cover that. So like I said, I think the Giants are pretty good. Sai, your game here, Indy. I think I wrote this wrong because it's in Indy, right?
Yeah.
So it's Tennessee at Indy. Indy's favored by 3, which says the teams are even on a neutral site. Over under 51. I'll start it off. Colts win at home. They dominated them on the road at Tennessee. I think it's a good game. I'm gonna take the Colts at home. And again, I like that spread because I disagree that these teams are even on a neutral site.
So I'll go. Like I know I usually go about along with the Colts. The big thing for me is injuries because if we have as many of guys that didn't practice today not playing, this is going to be extremely difficult for us to win because we can't just like rely on Philip Rivers to carry this team. I'm going to pick the Colts because hopefully, fingers crossed, we get at least 4 or 5 of these guys back. So for that reason, I'm going to pick the Colts. But this isn't one I feel comfortable betting on because like the spread is 3. Like I could definitely see us winning this game by 3 points too, even if we win. You know what I mean? So especially DeForest Buckner out, he's one of our biggest pieces. Like he's not playing. So I'll for that reason, I'm going to pick the Colts. But I'm not like super comfortable betting on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Colts in this one too. Believe it or not, here. I do think that Ryan Tannehill needs to step it up, as we've obviously talked about. They had an opportunity to really take charge in Baltimore. Now, albeit they won, but they didn't really. There wasn't that impetus that I thought that I was gonna see, where they were firing on cylinders immediately.
Yep.
So I think there's a repetitive performance. I think they start slow, and Indianapolis just is too tough. I think Indy wins this one.
Sweet. Next game, Carolina at Minnesota, -3.5. Minnesota, 50.5 is the over/under. Zach?
Oh, Minnesota wins and they cover. I just do not believe in Carolina. PJ Walker, shout out to you for winning your first NFL game. And also, he's undefeated in the NFL and he was undefeated in the XFL.
Is he? I don't know.
I think it was the XFL. Yeah, he was 5-0 in the XFL. That run ends today. Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, they definitely cover that spread and they win.
So I don't know if they definitely cover the spread, only because I think Teddy Bridgewater might actually be back this weekend. They said Teddy and Christian McCaffrey are practicing, but it's pretty likely Christian McCaffrey doesn't play this weekend. I think it'll be a close game, and maybe the Vikings win by a field goal too. So I'm not super comfortable with it, but I hope we see the Vikings just run the ball down the
Also, Thielen might be out with COVID.
Yeah, but apparently, he had a positive test, but then had a negative test immediately after. So if he has a couple more negatives, then he should play. So we'll see. But I will pick Minnesota, though. I'm going to lean Minnesota on this one.
I've got Minnesota and a good cover as well, although I think PJ was pretty good.
Have any of us not picked the same team yet?
Oh, dear. I'm telling you, I love the bank this week. I love the bank this. I hated it last week. I love it this week.
We're betting the house.
All right, let's keep going.
I don't know. Arizona at New England. Maybe we get a little dissension here. Arizona's favored 2.5.
Only 2.5. Wow. Okay.
It's on the road. Over under 49.5. I'll start it off. I tossed this one around a lot because New England 2 weeks ago looked good. Last week loses to Houston. Especially if you get bad weather in New England.
Yeah, that's going to benefit New England a lot.
Maybe we check that here. We have it live. Do we have bad weather?
Projected for this game?
52 and sunny. We have good weather. I'll take Arizona. Not confident.
Wow, that was a not confident.
I'm not super confident, but at the same time, I feel like that's a spread that's like you almost even if you lose it, you feel good about picking Arizona to win by 2.5 in good weather. You know what I mean?
This is a fun one because it's like, all right, Arizona, if they win, they're going to cover.
Yeah.
But I also think if you look at the over/under, if you think New England's going to win, then that goes under.
Yeah.
Because 50 is a big number. And New England's going to win.
If they win, it's going to be because of their defense.
So I think this is a good double down kind of game.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to pick Arizona. I've been picking against Arizona a lot. This weekend I'm going to Arizona, even though New England I know can pull out these close ones against good offenses. I just think it's going to be hard for them to hang with Cam not throwing the ball well at all. Arizona's one of those teams that puts up points, right? So that makes it difficult.
I'm going New England here, guys. I think New England.
There it is.
Wins.
Cheers! I like that.
And I think this is the first start of the season, the first part of the start of the season where you see Arizona fall off the rails a little bit. I think you start to see Seattle and LA take over, and it becomes a race of 3 to a race of 2 here in the NFC West. I definitely think Arizona will make the playoffs as a wild card, but they are no means a division winner in my opinion.
Also, shout out to Damian Harris, who is now for 3 out of the last 4 games has proven.
Yeah.
He is the real deal, and they need to commit to him.
He's legit. It's a tough start though, because if Arizona starts lighting it up,
that's true.
Harris doesn't pick passes.
That's true.
I can guarantee you we're not going to agree on the next one. Miami at the Jets, -7 to Miami, 44.5. Side, who you got?
I'm taking Miami.
I've got Miami, and I think they cover.
Jets win on the road. Or no, they're at home. Jets win this one.
What happened with the
Jets
you
win
beat
this
on the
one.
Miami?
So here it is. I was huge on the Miami bandwagon.
Here
I'm
we
done. They screwed us. They screwed
They
us.
did.
And look at this. So we jump on the Miami bandwagon for the previous 2-3 weeks, right? But what happened in each of those games where they beat the Rams and I forget
Defense,
who
right?
else they. Not only did they play good defense, they scored defensive touchdowns, they scored special team touchdowns.
Yeah.
What happens last week? The Broncos are not, I mean, they're not awful, but they're not good.
No, and Drew Lock played terribly.
Yeah, and what happened? The Dolphins didn't score defensive touchdowns.
They had
They
13
didn't
points.
score special teams touchdown because in those earlier games, Tua did not play well. He didn't play well against Denver, and this time it actually mattered.
They played like they were playing against the 2016 Denver Broncos, right? Like with Von Miller and
Yeah, exactly.
Chris Harris Jr.
Well, I like your point
Keeps
on
the
this.
lead.
He- It's like, and that's why he got replaced. It's like he
Yeah.
never had to experience adversity in a difficult situation because other parts of the team were bailing them
Yeah,
out.
I said this to my buddy Lou, who was on the pod, I guess 2 weeks ago, last week. I was like, Miami's only winning because of these defensive touchdowns. Can they win a game if they don't get that? They didn't.
You know, I know this is supposed to be about picks, but what did you guys think of taking Tua out and putting Fitzmagic in the like? That was wild to me because they won the last two
I
games.
loved it.
Like that felt like Nick Saban in Alabama, like taking out his start, like putting Tua in with the irony that Tua was the one that got put in for Jalen Hurts. And on the flip side, in his third start after winning 2 straight, he gets taken out and
Yeah.
halfway through the game or in the fourth quarter for Fitzmagic. That was pretty interesting.
I loved it because their offense is definitively better with Fitzpatrick. I don't think it's close. And they're, again, we talked about it, they're a playoff contender. They want to make the playoffs. And in that game, they were behind. Tua wasn't going to bring them
So
back.
I will
Fitzpatrick almost did.
And I will say that to counter your point, there's a difference between being out on the Dolphins and picking the Jets to beat them, though.
The Jets have looked really good the last 2 weeks, including a bye. My only concern is that Darnold might be coming back. And I'd rather them have Flacco because he's looked pretty good. But they almost knocked off the Chargers last
Dude,
week. They
I don't
come
know
back,
if you-
they almost beat the Patriots.
They did almost come back against Chargers, but I don't know if you saw the pick six that Joe Flacco threw last week against the Chargers. And the Chargers are notorious for letting teams come back. It's like-
Don't get me wrong. This is more a pick against the
The
Dolphins,
Dolphins,
but it's interesting. It's actually not a bad strategy. It's almost like in baseball where you start your defensive stud, and then if you fall behind, bring in your power hitter late. It's like
That's true.
bring Tua in the game to kind of keep things under control as the defense plays well, and if you fall behind, maybe go to Fitzpatrick.
Go chuck
save
it
the
up.
day.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
don't know, but I needed an upset on the card. This is my only upset on the card.
Wow.
Jets outright.
So I buy it. I mildly buy it.
I don't even a little bit, to be honest.
And here's-
I'm intrigued.
Do you think the Jets go winless this year?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
I do.
think so.
Their only other chance to really get one other than this, I think, is New England in 17.
Yeah, no, I think
And I think they know that.
I think the Jets go 0-4, and I think they don't really have anything to play for, and there's no reason for them to come out and make a statement.
Well, the Jets that are a good 0-16 team, I think they sneak one out.
They're-
I'm intrigued by the matchup there.
I mean, I guess if you compare them like the 0-16 Dolphins, they're a good
Or the
0-16.
Lions. Remember the
Oh yeah, that's true.
0-16
Hey man, this might be the best 0-16 team we've seen. All right, let's keep moving.
Cleveland at Jacksonville. Cleveland favored by 7 over under 49, which is huge for this game. That's an easy under. I'll just go quick. Cleveland. I don't know if they cover. I don't really care. They're not really a cover 7 points kind of team. That 49.
Dude, they're out.
Mike
I love
Lennon
it.
is the quarterback this
Dude,
week.
they're out. Cleveland is out Denzel Ward for a couple weeks, and they're out Myles Garrett. I don't know if I could ever pick Cleveland to win by 7, even if it's against Jacksonville in that situation, because it's not like their offense is lighting it up. They run the ball a lot and keep games close. So I'm taking Cleveland, but I would actually feel like fine picking Jacksonville to cover that spread. Like that's how I feel.
That's a game of field goals. I love the under. Cleveland wins. I don't think they cover, even though it's a very accurate spread of how this game is going to go.
Yeah.
What good quarterbacks come out of NC State? Mike Glennon? Oh shoot, Phillip Rivers, Russ Wilson. We'll go to the next. We'll go to the next
Finley,
match.
Finley was supposed to
Oh,
be the
yeah,
starter.
It's an even out of quarterbacks in
No.
NC State
Finley
land.
was supposed to be
lost
It's
the
like a
start.
requirement.
Glennon won the start.
And the irony, I pointed out this the other day, but both the quarterbacks for the Colts, the first two are NC State guys, and Rivers and Brissett. And then Naheem Hines is an NC State guy,
true.
which is
That's a good
hilarious.
point.
We got a lot of
That's a
NC
good
State
point.
guys.
NC State
coming
U.
up. Yeah.
Here's a big one. Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Supposed to be Thursday night, moved to Sunday afternoon, 1:30. Pittsburgh favored by, it's 5, but it's changing with all the COVID news because obviously this allows some of the COVIDs to clear
Yep.
for Baltimore, especially in the backfield. Over-unders was 43.5. I imagine that'll be higher. when I look again. But what do you guys think?
What do you guys think?
I've got Baltimore money line on this. I think Baltimore wins this game.
Woo! I'm taking Pittsburgh. They're 11-0.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, and not a difficult cover for me either.
Yeah, I'm picking.
Even at 5.
That's fair to each their own.
I think the cover could happen. It was a really close game the first time around, but I'm taking Pittsburgh because I have no reason to not believe in Pittsburgh and to believe in Baltimore.
And if that over-under doesn't change and the weather's good, I love the over there again. I have tons of picks on this slate, but 43.5. I think they scored 52 combined last time.
40. That's wild to me actually. Maybe
That's really
I
low.
really don't know.
That is low.
And again, I might go up with the running backs being healthy in Baltimore. But New Orleans at Denver. At Denver, Taysom Hill goes on the road across the country in a tough environment, even without fans. But New Orleans -6, 43.5 is your over-under. I'll take New Orleans. Not a confident cover for me. So I'll just take them outright.
Yeah, I'll take New Orleans by a touchdown. Start Taysom Hill as your quarterback instead of your tight end this week.
New Orleans wins this matchup, but Drew Lock in Denver last week recorded that win against the playoff team Miami does worry me a little bit. I'm not sold on Taysom Hill. I'm so excited about what he does, but the accuracy sometimes just is not there. I definitely think New Orleans wins, but I don't know if they cover this.
Fun fantasy tip too, but on ESPN you can still start Taysom Hill as your tight end
If you
don't
never take him
change your roster.
out. You're not allowed to pick anybody up or change anything. But
That's
It's
you
like
can
an IR. It's. I don't think that's intentionally a rule. That's just like a loophole almost.
and they'll probably change that next week. So we'll see what happens.
I don't know. That's like the IR thing. But
Well, that means
anyway,
you can never
it's
change
interesting.
your roster ever again.
Yeah. It's interesting, but San Francisco going to LA to face the Rams. The Rams are -6.5, 45.5 your over/under. Raheem Mostert should be back. I take the Rams. Tough cover. San Francisco beat them last time in a game where Mostert was healthy, but I like the Rams.
What? So wait, are we guaranteeing that Mostert's back? Because I know he
No.
got activated on IR and he's
Not a guarantee, but I think it should be back.
Okay, there's a chance. What's the line? What's the line?
6.5.
For the Rams?
At home.
I mean, I'm going to take the Rams to win, but you know what? If Mostert doesn't come back, I could see him winning by a touchdown. Like that's if he does come back, then it gets a little more interesting. But the 49ers defense is super banged up. So I mean, the Rams passing offense has opened up these last 2 weeks. I hope they come out there and throw the ball a bunch. So I'm taking the Rams.
Is it in LA?
Yeah.
That's what makes it difficult.
Mhm.
If this was in San Francisco, I would actually take San Francisco in a 6.5 spread. I definitely think the LA Rams are going to win the game. But we're not just talking Mostert potentially coming back. We're talking Deebo Samuel as well.
Tevin Coleman too. Tevin Coleman sucks in my opinion.
There's a variety of players in offense that will come back here. And I do think that the Rams do play to competition
That's true.
levels quite a bit. The Rams have struggled to pull away big in games where the opponent is not very respected in the NFL. But, you know, what you saw last week with the Buccaneers is they blew them out of the water because they actually played up to that level of competition. I think it's close, but I think LA wins.
I'm good with that. Kansas City at Tampa Bay. Big game. Fun game. Kansas City's favored -3.5, 55.5 is your over/under, another big number. I'll start us off here. I love this bet. Kansas City to cover 3.5.
I want Kansas City to cover, dude. I feel like this is one I want to bet on.
Agreed.
Kansas City to cover 3.5.
Dude, I mean,
I'm all in.
what I get the Tampa Bay's defense, but this almost feels disrespectful to the Chiefs to me. I mean, are you kidding me? Like these guys go put up points like it's nobody's business.
The
Even if-
Buccaneers get way too much credit.
like
man.
what is that? Like we just saw what happened last week. Whatever. I feel like we need to lock this one in before the line changes.
Yeah,
So what
I
I'm saying.
agree. Another good bet coming up, gents. Chicago at Green Bay. Green Bay favored by 8.5. 45 is the over/under. Quarterback for the Bears is.
Good question.
Question mark.
Don't know.
It's Trubisky.
It's not. I don't know. Is he healthy?
I don't know.
Maybe not.
I heard somebody else might be jumping in.
Who even came in? I don't even remember.
Oh man, that's a tough one, dude.
I
I don't
think
even
he
know.
got
Like, I have not been paying attention to their quarterback situation.
Yeah.
No idea. Side.
I mean, I'm taking the Packers, and especially if, I mean, not that it would make a difference if Foles, Trubisky, or whoever else played, but this is a pretty decent chance the Packers cover. Although, let's be real here, the Bears' defense is still amazing. Like, they're week in and week out, they're holding teams to low points, which is why I feel so bad for them because they should be winning so many more games if they even had a competent offense, and that just hasn't been the case. So, I don't know if I would take the Packers to win by over 8.5. Like, I could see this being a touchdown game just because of the defense, but I take the Packers to win. That's definitely something I'm leaning.
What else am I here for to rain on everyone's parade? cold weather environment. Chicago's used to it. I know they're going up to Green Bay. Cold weather
Yeah,
environment.
because Green Bay is not used to cold.
What are you talking?
But here's my thing.
42, partly cloudy side.
Cold
Or
weather
bad.
and a good defense is a recipe for disaster and covering spreads.
We
from
we
another
played
team.
2-on-2 basketball in 42 and partly cloudy. I think Aaron Rodgers will be fine on the field.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and I
football.
shoot 10% from the field. Now, albeit that's what I shoot regardless.
We need that. We need that, of course. I've got Green Bay as well.
Wait, hold on, Zach. Are you comparing your basketball acumen to Aaron Rodgers' football acumen? Is that the comparison we're
I
seeing?
got caught red-handed. I was just trying to slide it in.
You picked Green Bay to win, though, right?
Green Bay to win, but not to cover.
Oh, you did all that just to pick Green Bay to win? I thought he was picking Chicago.
It's tough.
No,
It's
the
tough.
8.5 spread is
Yeah.
I think the direction that easily.
Oh, fair.
I do like them to cover, but I actually think under 45 is a good bet. Because, again, it's
My
like
concern is if for whatever reason the Packers light it up.
and they score all 45,
Yeah.
that's my concern.
Or
as
if they score like 35 and the Bears.
I don't
only
see the
score
Bears scoring really.
Yeah, but it's one of those
like
games
the
where
Bengals.
it's one of those games where you have a huge lead and the defense lags off,
Yeah.
and the Packers defense is not good.
That's
like, let's be real.
Right. We don't expect that.
Actually, I don't know. I do like it now.
No,
What's
hey,
up?
we got enough other
Let's talk
options.
about
Let's keep going.
Monday Night Football, Seattle going to Philly. Again, Philly with a brutal schedule. They're going to need to start stealing a game or two. Seattle's favored by 5, over-unders 50.
By 5?
On the road, that's about right, I think.
Oh, that's when I'm it. Give me a touchdown.
I think that's about right to me.
Oh, give me a touchdown, bro.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull all my money out of my bank account here because I'm betting the house on all of these. On
Give me
all
You like
of them.
Seattle covering as well?
I think Seattle covers a 5-point spread.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the Eagles couldn't come within 5, but the way they have played recently gives me no reason to believe, even against a bad Seahawks secondary, and with Seattle getting Chris Carson back. I mean, come on, that offense is going to be fully loaded against that Eagles defense that has not been playing great, and then pair that with the fact that the Eagles just cannot get offense going, even against the bats. I mean, when in the fantasy waiver wires, Seattle's defense being one of the top ads of the week goes to show how bad the Eagles have been. Like, let's just be real here.
Even as degenerate gamblers, you do have a tendency of diving into the psychological aspects of these games. Seattle was the division frontrunner for 5-6 games to start the season. Now, obviously, they're in a contested battle for first place. Obviously, this is a great opportunity for them to get back on track, and then it's a good incentive for Russ to reclaim the MVP that he was claimed earlier this season.
I think Russ is out of the MVP race at this point, right? Like,
Yeah.
He's kind of taking over.
it's probably gonna be Mahomes. Like, it's,
We were joking about that the other day. We were like, Mahomes, Kyler's sneaking in. But it's like, or Rodgers, I mean, but it's like,
it's Mahomes.
that's like, it's
Mahomes, and then like Rodgers is like right here, and then it's like Wilson right here, and Murray, but then it's like Mahomes like right here. Like that's Mahomes. It's Mahomes, man. It's Mahomes. Like, how can you not pick Mahomes?
Yeah, I got Seattle. You kind of convinced me on a cover as well, and that's it for the picks. Again, easier slate, I think.
Damn,
If
that's
you want to bet, I like.
I'm a little worried about how much we're gonna be in on this week. Like,
That's how we should have gone light last week. We go all in this
I
week.
actually do agree though that it's amazing because we probably got the hardest slate ever last week, and this feels like the most like pickable slate this week. So it kind of evens out. Gentlemen, wow, the first
I'm
in
gonna beer. We
person.
need to end this so we can.
Yeah, we gotta refill here, gents.
That's right, boys.
Cheers. That was
Cheers.
Mondays Outside. Happy Thanksgiving. We're very thankful for you all. We're thankful
Appreciate
to have
you.
these boys home to be doing a little pod and celebrating with. Wish you and your families the best and happy holidays, guys. That's Mondays Outside. You guys got anything you want to say about your viewers?
My favorite part of Thanksgiving is mashed potatoes. What's your favorite food? We'll sign up
Oh,
there.
go ahead.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Can I just go turkey?
You go turkey.
That's
With the gravy. With the
Throw a
gravy.
little
Irony because nobody picks turkey, which is ironic because obviously turkey is a staple.
Yeah.
My cousin's in the room behind me, shrimp, potato casserole all the way.
Ooh.
That is our family tradition. We love potato casserole, so I can't wait we're making it tomorrow. We're the executive chefs of potato casserole, so maybe I'll hook
Those
those up.
three with an added parlay with stuffing, and you got the
baby, let's
the
get it.
house of cards there, man.
Let's get it.
Tough one.
Cheers, guys. Take care. Happy Thanksgiving. Oh, I know that.
Sadly, I need that piece of paper for the.